Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Happy Halloween! For your guys' treat this year, we're going to check out the very rare mid to late 90s Jackson Roswell Rhoads original aluminum spaceship guitar. But this isn't just a single feature episode, we need to talk about the other spaceship guitar first. The ripoff Roswell, the Gibson Modern Flying V. So in 2018, Gibson did this limited edition run where they made 33 of these in each color that they offered. They had a gold prism, an ebony prism, and a silver prism. The only one that I have not done a separate review and demo on is the silver prism. So if you want to learn more in-depth information about these, you can check out these videos. But essentially, the internet hated these guitars when they first came out, and people are only just now starting to warm up to them, in my opinion. But the biggest flack that this thing caught was it copied the Roswell Rhoads. So today, we're going to compare the two to see which one I prefer. Because let's face it, they are very similar guitars. But let's go ahead and dig into the Roswell. Alright, so this is a mid to late 90s model that was developed at the Jackson custom shop, and it actually came to the marketing director of Jackson in a dream. His name is Charles Perino, and he just went to sleep one night and had this most vivid dream of this style of a guitar just floating in space. So he woke up and he started talking to his buddy Tim Wilson, who helped him turn his description of the guitar that he saw into reality, and this is what he came up with. This is a completely aluminum-bodied guitar, and take a look at this. I never realized that this had such an arch to it. I always just thought it was kind of a flat guitar, but at the same time, it starts off really thick and then it gets thinner as you get to the point. I mean, this is really a polished weapon. You could do some damage with this thing. And the body actually has these pinstripes running up and down it, so it's not a completely smooth surface either. So it's kind of got this interesting spaceship-like vibe, but you could also say, hey, this looks exactly like the Star Trek logo. And yes, it is very similar, but Tim, in an interview that he did with the Music Zoo, said it was not directly influenced based off of that. He actually thinks he might have picked it up from an ABC sports show, just a little logo that was down in the corner. But short of the hollowed out aluminum body here, they have a Tom Holmes pickup in here. And there's no real reason why they decided to use that. It's just they had one laying around that had a cover that would look pretty good. Because the initial prototype of this was just meant to be a fancy NAMM display piece. They didn't actually think people would want these. But little did they know that they would have to do a run of these. The next special feature that you'll notice is take a look at this knob. I love it. We'll take a closer look on the workbench with it, but it's a UFO knob and it's just beautiful. And you're going to notice only one knob. You only have a master volume for this, so if you like tone controls, this is probably not the guitar for you, but you plug it in right here by the strap button, and you've got shawlers on here, and it just plugs in right there. It's out of your way. You can tie it in with your strap. It's really easy to do. But I had always thought these were all aluminum guitars, but no, it actually still has a wooden neck. And it's kind of finished over in like a charcoal metallic gray color, so that's kind of cool to see. That was a color that Gibson used in the 80s. I'm sure Jackson has used it on something before as well, but then they do an aluminum peg head up here. And then your headstock is this really strange shape, and you get these weird LSR tuners. As if this guitar wasn't crazy enough, they're mounted on the top. So normally you're tuning a guitar like, back here, but these guys tune from the top. It just looks so strange in person, especially from this angle here. And you'll also notice there are no screws on this thing. They're all adjusted by small little hex keys. So that makes it also look kind of futuristic as well. But the bodies and headstocks were actually made by a company called Numericon. And after they finished machining these things, they did a clear anodizing process. That way it wouldn't turn your hands funky colors like it would if it was just regular straight up aluminum. And our last feature to talk about are our crop circles here. Basically, they just found some pictures of crop circles online. They sent them to a guy called Dwight England of Custom Inlay, Kentucky, and he just turned them into inlays. So this is just a very spacey guitar. If you're wondering how many they made, there were 123 of them with the aluminum bodies from the Jackson USA custom shop. Now, once they finished the run of the aluminum bodies, there were about 23 wooden ones also made within the custom shop, but then they also made some in Japan that were also wooden bodies. And just kind of as some fun, interesting facts about these, some of the made in Japan versions actually have trem systems on it. So if you think this thing needs a tremolo, just find yourself one of those. And there's actually a single gold version of this. When they did that anodizing process, instead of clear so you can see this, they made it gold. So that'd be kind of cool to see. And these are rather expensive guitars here today in 2020. Usually asking prices go between like $7,000 to $9,000. But I was very thankful that a viewer of the show sent this in to me just to borrow. So no, this one is not for sale. This was just meant to be, you know, a fun little Halloween episode for you guys. And one last mystery to solve here. Where does the name Roswell Rhoads come from? Roswell, New Mexico is a very famous site of a UFO crash. Hence why they put the UFO knob on this guitar. And Rhoads came about because this is essentially just a Jackson Randy Rhoads model, but, you know, all futuristic and stylish, instead of being sharp, jagged points. So how are these guitars similar and how are they different? I mean, first off, you're going to notice that the Roswell, it's only one pickup, one control, whereas the Modern Flying V kind of improved upon that. We now have a neck pickup and you've got a master volume and a master tone. So this is going to be ultimately a more versatile guitar depending on what you're trying to do. But I'm trying to size them up but side by side here. You can see that the Roswell Rhoads is a much more pointy guitar here. This one definitely feels a lot smaller in comparison, because even the headstock on this guy is a lot pointier. So even though the designs were very similar, I can see why no lawsuit ever, kind of came up, because they are very different at the same time. For me, I think one of the biggest stylistic changes that I liked with the Modern Flying V is how they did the sloped shoulders, kind of like they do regular Flying Vs. Whereas this guy, he kind of looks blobular, but I think that's what they were going for with the whole spaceship theme anyways. And unfortunately, no cool inlays on the Modern Flying V. But hey, where else are you going to see a Roswell and a Modern Flying V in the same room, right? Right here, only on the Trogly's Guitar Show, guys. Now that we know all about these guitars, let's go ahead and throw the Roswell on the workbench so we can take a look at its individual parts and specs. Inside the Roswell Rhoads, I don't actually have the correct size Allen key wrench to get these strings out of here, so we're just going to have to do the best that I can on short notice here. So this body is actually aircraft grade aluminum alloy, and again, you've got those ridges on it. You can hear me ruffling against it. So it's smooth this way, but rough here. So very spacey and futuristic. And the pickup in here, once again, is the Tom Holmes. And as far as the pickup cavity itself, I mean, it's just like a regular pickup cavity here. But instead of seeing wood, you just see the aluminum body in here. And as far as the pickup, you can see the THC for Tom Holmes right there. And depending on your lighting, you can also see those words right there. I was kind of surprised to see that all the online articles were saying this was a really hot humbucker. So I was expecting like 16 something, but no, 8.5. Then for the screws used for this pickup cover, they are these guys. So again, you get the hex key up here, and then it just kind of has that ball end at the top, and then it's just a regular screw after that. But the pickup ring surround is also made out of the same aluminum material, and this is a Goto brand bridge, and you can adjust it with the flathead screwdriver. Then the strings are a little bit interesting on this thing. So this is kind of like a bridge just built into the guitar. So you just take the ball end of the string and you place it into the body, and then it'll hold securely and tightly. As far as our knob, I thought I would pop that off so you can get a closer look at this UFO. So essentially, it's just a metal dome that they just kind of built up to look like that. They shaved away some of this inside. It would actually probably not be that difficult to make. But this just attaches to the shaft using a little hex key. And to complete the UFO vibe, they just have this little rubber strip around it. And in my opinion, that makes this entire knob. If it did not have that little gripper, it would not even look right. But that also kind of helps hide the screw right there, but also at the same time, it looks like something where it shoots a laser beam out. If you want to know what number you have out of 123, you can actually locate that at the last fret right here. So RSW for Roswell Rhoads, and then your serial number, 086 for this particular one out of 123 aluminum-bodied ones. Now, as far as the neck, it's an ebony fretboard, but get this, you actually do in fact have black binding. And the reason why they did that is the finish that they were using on this neck did not want to stick to the ebony fretboard. Apparently Jackson's always had that issue, so what they do is they put that binding on there, that way it does adhere to it. Here's another look at our crop circle inlays. This one's kind of cool. It looks like a little alien guy. He got his ears and like some sort of antennae. It's kind of interesting, kind of like a bubble blowing thing. But this one is clearly the Ubisoft logo. That was kind of funny to me. And then I'm not really sure if this guitar even has a truss rod, to be honest with you guys, but it is a maple neck. But we have a nut width of 1.73 inches. And that increases to 2.04 by the 12. First fret neck depth, 0.79. And it stays very thin, 0.84 by the 12. This is a super slim 60s neck. All right, let's talk tuners here. These are no longer in production. If you break them, yeah, it's kind of hard. You have to buy them on the used market. They can be a little bit expensive. The Gibson I had something that looked very similar to these, but they weren't LSRs. But it did have this barrel tuning mechanism, which it's not my favorite, but you're probably curious, how do these things work? So when it comes time to change your string, you need to loosen it all the way, and eventually it'll pop out like that. And then from here, you need to get the correct size Allen wrench. It's kind of hard to see, but it's in there. But once you loosen that, that actually loosens the ball bearing that has the string caught. These are locking tuners. And once again, you come here, put the ball end of the string in there. You got that. And then you place your string right back in here. And then you got to push on this, and then you should be able to turn it. And as you're turning that, you can see it's pulling the string inside of this shaft. And that's just how it works. So, not too scary if you actually have the hex key that you need to use this. Unfortunately, I don't. But the headstock here, it's the exact same shape as the body. It's just continued. You even have the little ridges right there, and then you get the Jackson logo engraved into it. All right, and moving on to the back here. So this large access control plate is not meant to be removed. It's glued in with silicone. I mean, you could remove it and then glue it back in, but yeah, I don't want to do that. So if you need to replace your output jack, you're going to have to get yourself some silicone. But this one, kind of like the screws we were looking at earlier, but just a little bit larger. They are also hex key in style, and this is what the inside of this guitar looks like. So they just completely chambered this out with some sort of routing machine, and that's the exact same thing that's under here. Here's a photo that the Music Zoo had on their website of one that was torn apart. And it's just a single 500K pot, nothing too fancy here. But the neck, it's actually a bolt-on neck guitar. I did not realize that when I was just, first looking at the Roswell Rhoads. But apparently they drilled and tapped these, and you're not meant to remove it, or else you might have some troubles getting it back in. So, yep, don't want to touch that, don't want to touch that. But here's our other Schaller strap button. Somehow they just attached it to the same bolt location, and your other one's down here. I guess it's kind of a good thing that they didn't do like a straight up aluminum neck, because then it would completely change the way that this guitar feels. I mean, playing it, this hand anyways, it just feels like a regular guitar. It's nice and warm, it's got the regular finish that you're used to feeling. It's a full gloss finish as well, not satin or anything. As far as the headstock, I'm not sure if this is also glued in, or if I were to remove these 6 screws, if that'd be taking this plate off, or if I'm trying to take the tuners off. It's not my guitar, I'm just borrowing it, so I don't really want to touch it. But how they attach this headstock is I think they call it like a tongue and groove or something. So you've got the extension of the maple neck underneath here, and then this just attaches right onto that. All said and done, this weighs 9 pounds 2 ounces, but man, it feels way heavier than that because of this heavy body. It's a good thing they chambered it out. Compare that to this one, 6 pounds 4.2 ounces. This is a much comfier ride. But let's go ahead, plug these in, and see, does a wood body sound different than an aluminum one?
you thought sitting down playing a Flying V was hard, well, it's like a Flying V with a curved top to make even another plane that is kind of strange. It's odd on multiple dimensions. The tuners feel nice. Hey, this thing is about as much of a weapon as any guitar I've ever seen.
Now that we know all about these guitars, what are my final thoughts on these things? Which one did I ultimately prefer? This thing is really cool. It's the one that kind of started it all, but I've got to give it to the Gibson Modern Flying V. As far as a playable instrument, this is the better one in my opinion. Even though it might not be as cool, I mean, this finish is absolutely awesome now that I know what to expect when I bought it this time. But you get a neck pickup, you get a bridge pickup, and I kind of like that it's smaller. It does feel a little bit weird when you go from that massive thing to this guy. He feels so tiny, but he's a little bit more wieldy. You're not feeling like you're gonna knock it into a bunch of stuff. And I like having the option of being able to select the different pickups. I will still say that the output jack location on this one is just awful. They weren't thinking that one through too much. They only put it there because it was easier for them to put it there. And this guitar is so much more lighter in weight. Like, this thing feels like a toy. It just rests on you. It's super comfortable. I liked it. However, the biggest difference that I noticed right away switching between these two is your string spacing is actually different between these. Your strings are a little bit closer together here, and the neck profile for this is a huge baseball bat. But the tuners aren't quite as cool on this one. But hey, we do get the Apex volute. That's awesome. But if you prefer a slimmer 60s profile, you might like these things better, but ultimately this is kind of more of a display piece in my opinion. Is it playable? Yeah. Can you take this thing out on stage? Of course. And that's what the current owner of this one uses it for. They like to take it around, show celebrities, and capture photos of them with their guitar. It's kind of their little keepsake memento for that. So for that, this is such a cool guitar. And it's definitely a giggable instrument. It's heavy, but not overly heavy. You feel the weight more so in the body, so switching between the two, you definitely notice a difference there. As far as the tones go, I really did not notice that much of a tone difference listening back to the recordings. Because you gotta remember, we're also comparing different pickups here, so it's not necessarily a fair fight, but I was definitely expecting something to sound different, but nope, not really. The aluminum guitar was a little bit brighter, but we don't really know if we can attribute that to the body material or not. Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed our Halloween special this year. It was a great treat to document the Roswell Rhoads and a Modern Flying V all at the same time. This was just a happy accident. I wasn't actually planning it, so this just turned out great. Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video with a friend who you think would enjoy it, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.